Okay, in this video I want to review the blues form really quickly, and again to repeat, there are two different versions of the blues form, right? A form is a set number of bars. It's a cycle that repeats over and over again in music. So typically a blues is 12 bars, 12 measures. We even very often will call it a 12-bar blues. So in a traditional 12-bar blues, in the blues style, it's very simple, right? We're going to be doing the key of B flat. So in the key of B flat, it'd be 4 bars of the 1 chord, B flat, and then 2 bars of the 4 chord, B flat, and these are all dominant, by the way. So back to the beginning, 4 bars of B flat dominant, 2 bars of E flat dominant, back to 2 bars of B flat dominant. Then for the last 4 bars, we do 1 measure of F7, 1 measure of E flat 7, and then 2 bars of B flat 7. So that's a traditional blues, what I call a blues blues. Very simple. In jazz, we add a lot more chords, so it's a little bit more complicated. I call this a jazz blues. So a jazz blues, we start on the 1 dominant, we immediately go to the 4 dominant. In bar 2, bar 3, we go back to the 1 dominant. Okay, in bar 4, it can be the 1 dominant again, or we can do a 2-5 to the key of the 4, which would be 5 minor 7, 1 dominant 7, 4 7. Or you can do what I did the first time around, and you can just say a 2-5 in the key of the 4, which tells you this is going to be minor, this is going to be dominant. Okay, so now we get to the second 4-bar phrase. We're on 4 dominant 7 for a bar. Then we go up a half step, and we do a sharp 4 fully diminished 7 for 1 bar. This is a little chromatic passing chord that gets us back to the 1 dominant 7. Now in the next bar, we're going to go to a 6 dominant 7, which is acting as the 5 of 2, because the downbeat of the last 4-bar phrase, we're going to land on a 2 minor, go for a bar, go to a 5-7 for a bar, and then we're going to do all crammed into 2 measures, so only 2 beats per chord, a turnaround in jazz, which is most commonly a 1, 6 dominant, 2 minor, 5 dominant, 1. Okay, so altogether we've got 1 for a bar, 1-7 for a bar. It's starting at the beginning. 1-7 for a bar, 4-7 for a bar, 1-7 for a bar, crammed into 1 bar, a 5 minor, a 1-7, 1 bar of a 4-7, 1 bar of a sharp 4, diminished, fully diminished 7, 1 bar of a 1-7, 1 bar of a 6-7, 1 bar of a 2 minor, 1 bar of a 5-7, and then crammed into 1 bar, 1 dominant, 6 dominant, crammed into 1 bar, 2 minor, 5-7, back to the top, 1. The only other note I'll say is that if you want, before the 2 chord, before the C minor, instead of just playing a G dominant before that C, we can do a 2-5 to C. But since it's C minor that we're landing on, it would be a minor 2-5. So it would be D half diminished, right? To a G7, flat 9 or sharp 9, to the C minor. Okay, so let's look at these now with just our thirds and sevens, So as always, we want to avoid unnecessary leaps with our hands, and we want to try and keep our thirds and sevens between the C below middle C, so here's middle C. So I want to keep my thirds and sevens between this C and the G above middle C, so in this zone for the most part. It's okay if you push a little bit higher on occasion, but definitely don't go much lower than this. You want both of your thirds and sevens to mostly be within this range. Otherwise, they start to sound muddy if you go lower, and if you go higher, they start to sound more like upper structures and less like actual thirds and sevens within the body of the main body of the chord. Okay, so I want to avoid unnecessary leaps. So if I'm going to play my B flat dominant with my 3rd and my 7 here, if I'm going to start here, I do not want to jump way up here because it's a big jump and it frustrates the voice leading, right? Because going from B flat 7 to B flat 7 to E flat 7, this A flat wants to voice lead to this G. And likewise, going from B flat 7 to E flat 7. This D wants to voice lead to that D flat. Right, so what that means is the positions of my thirds and my sevens are going to flip-flop. So if I'm starting with the third on bottom, 3, 7 is on top. When I go to the 4 chord, that is going to reverse. Now my 7, my flat 7 is on bottom, my third is on top. Okay. Back to the 1 chord, bar 3. Okay, now if I'm going to do a 2-5 to 4, right, I'm going to have to do the 7 on bottom, right, with the third on top. Then third on bottom, 7 on top. Now I'm at the 4 chord. 7 on bottom, third on top. Now going to the sharp 4 is easy because the third and 7 are the same. So I leave my fingers where they are. Now I'm back to the 1, dominant, 3, 7. Now here's the only time I really have to make a little bit of a leap, going from the 1 to the 6. Dominant. So I'm at the 1 dominant, I need to leap up here to the 6 dominant. Notice I've got the 7 on bottom because this is a smaller leap than going. And I can't do this because now I'm out of my range. I'm too low. This is already too muddy. So 1 dominant, 6 dominant, 3, 7, 2, right? 3, 7, going to my 5 chord. Now the 3 is on top, 7. And the turnaround is very similar to what we just did, just twice as fast, right? 1 dominant, 2 dominant, sorry, excuse me, 1 dominant, 6 dominant, 2 minor, 5 dominant, 1. So now let's look at the whole form in time, starting with this inversion. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the top, and I just ended at the top. Okay, now let's look at if we start in the other inversions. So instead of starting with the third on bottom, I'm going to start with the 7 on bottom. It's the exact same idea, except everything is just inverted. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and you notice I switched inversions on the last turnaround because once we're at the 1 chord here and we're going to the 6, we can either go up to here, 6, 2, 5, 1, or we can go 1 down, 6, 2, 5, 1. Okay, now if you're ever running out of room or you just want to invert just because you want to, because you can, do it in the middle of a measure on the same chord. Don't do it between chords. So if I'm down here on this 1 dominant and I'm thinking, yeah, it's already sounding a little bit muddy. Maybe your piano is slightly out of tune like mine. This is a little bit out of tune. It's already getting a little bit muddy if I go to the 4 chord here. It's already a little bit muddy. So if I'm on this chord, I want to invert in the middle of the measure. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So you notice I started here, in the middle of the measure I jumped up here, so I can still get a smooth transition from the 1 to the 4. What I do not want to do is jump 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Because that, now I've frustrated the voice leading, okay? So that's how you do a B-flat blues with just your thirds and sevens in your right hand and just your root in your left hand. So I would practice it left hand alone first, and decide how you're going to do bar 4. Are you going to do 2, 5 to 4, or just do another bar of the 4? Right? 4, sharp 4, 1, and then same thing after that. Are you just going to do the 6, which I prefer? Or if you want, you can do a minor 2, 5, right? You could go 2, 5 to 6, or sorry, 2, 5 to 2. 2, 5 to 2, 2, 2, 5 to 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 2, 2 6 dominant for 2 bars, right? 2, 5, 1. Okay, so that's how you do a B flat blues with just your thirds and sevenths. Next time, in the next video, we'll go over how to do them fully voiced out.